we're going to talk about our third mechanism for evolution, which is going to be mutations. Now, third mechanism, we're going to be talking about our third finger, our middle finger. Middle starts with M, mutations start with M. So I like to think M, middle finger, mutations. And a mutation is a change in the DNA sequence of an organism. So we're changing the DNA. Now, there's a couple of things that mutations have to be in order to affect evolution. One thing that a mutation must be is that you must be able to inherit it. You have to have it be heritable. Because if you can't inherit it, you can't pass it off from one generation to the next, we're not going to affect the gene pools of future generations. So we need mutations to be heritable. Next, mutations are going to be one of the main ways that we introduce new variation into a population. Now, with previous mechanisms of evolution, we've talked about variation. We talked about variation in natural selection. It was the V and Vista, but that's variation that already exists in a population. Mutations give us new variation that may not have existed before. Additionally, in gene flow, we talked about getting new variation to a population when we moved around our individuals or our gametes. However, how do we get new variation that doesn't exist in any populations yet? If we want to get that brand new variation that doesn't exist in any of our populations of a species, we need a mutation to happen. And additionally, without mutations, if we had natural selection that kept occurring without mutations, that natural selection would eliminate all the genetic variation in your population over time. So without mutations, variation of a population would eliminate over time in unstable environments, because as natural selection is happening, it's saying, yeah, this organism can live and it's allowed to pass on its genes, and it's killing off the other ones. It's not going to pass on those genes. We're going to start eliminating that variation. So we need new mutations to build up in order to keep that variation in our populations. Another thing about mutations is that they occur randomly. They are not happening purposefully. Organisms are not thinking to themselves, I need to evolve this new trait so that I can increase my survival and reproduction. Instead, mutations happen randomly. So because they are happening randomly, sometimes when you get a change in your DNA sequence, it can harm you. They can be harmful. And if you get a harmful mutation, it's going to get eliminated by natural selection. So you're not going to have that mutation stay around for long. Additionally, some of our mutations are neutral, which means that they're not going to affect your phenotype. And if they're not affecting your phenotype, they're not going to lead you to have either an increase or decrease in your chance of survival. So if they're not increasing or decreasing your chance of survival and reproduction, then they're not going to be affected by natural selection. So some mutations are neutral, which are not affected by natural selection. And the third type of mutation that we can get by random chance would be a beneficial one. A beneficial one would give us a better chance to compete, survive, and reproduce in our certain environment. So because of that, it would spread through a population by natural selection. So we have up here, we have a population of our insects, and you can see that the mom and dad insects, they're green because they have two green alleles. And if they mate and have babies, we should expect them to only have green babies with green alleles. But we have this organism that has brown because it somehow got a brown allele. How would this come about? Through a random mutation. And if we're living in an environment where maybe that brown one is going to be able to camouflage better with the environment, that would be a beneficial mutation. However, if these insects were living in an environment that was a lot of greenery was around, that would be a harmful mutation, and that organism probably would not live very long. So those are mutations. Now looking down here, we can see another example of how mutation happens and how it affects natural selection. So right here, I have my organism, and in my next generation, I have multiple organisms with multiple different traits. How did these come by? Through random mutation. So random mutation creates new variation. But some of these mutations are going to be beneficial, some might be neutral, some might be harmful. So we see here that this one is being crossed off because of natural selection, that organism is being eliminated. So for some reason, that mutation was harmful and it's not surviving. So we have the two that are reproducing are these top two, and they're reproducing to make new organisms. And we can also see that there's more mutations happening. So I have different variations in gray. So mutations and reproductions happening. And once again, due to natural selection, some of these mutations are not going to be beneficial, others are. So the ones that are not beneficial are getting eliminated, and we can see that over time, the favorable mutations are the ones that are able to survive and spread. So remember, middle finger, that's going to stand for M for middle and M for mutations. Now let's do a practice problem. This practice problem says, which of the following statements about mutations is true? So we need to remember a few things that we said about mutations just a moment ago to answer this. We said that mutations happen randomly, so we can have harmful ones, neutral ones, and beneficial ones. We also said that mutations have to be heritable. We have to pass them on from parent to offspring. And additionally, we said that mutations are how we get new variation into a population. So looking through this, answer choice A says mutations are not random. Remember, we are looking for the answer that is true, and we know that mutations are random. So A is false. We can eliminate that one. Next, let's look at C. It says that mutations respond to natural selection by producing new genes that are needed at the moment. Now, once again, we're going to cross off C because if we are making things that are needed at the moment, that's showing you that the mutations are happening purposefully, which is not true. Mutations are random. So answer choice C is eliminated. Answer choice D, mutations do not need to be heritable. That one's not true. We have to have a way to pass from parent to offspring if we're going to affect future generations. So we can cross that one off. So let's read through B and make sure that it's correct. It says mutations give rise to new alleles that may be harmful or beneficial, which is true. With those mutations happening randomly, some are harmful, and they're going to not be kept into the population by natural selection. Some are beneficial and will be passed on, and some even are neutral.